Welcome, everybody, to There Will Be Bets. We are back for the Week 12 Best Bets preview episode. We're going to cover our best bets. We're going to cover the props you need to be betting. We're going to hit the primetime games. We're going to cover a little bit of college football, maybe some college basketball in there as well. I am your host, Cole Oxane. I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Jake LaSalle and Drew LaSalle. We're going to hop right into it here on the Week 12 show to make sure that we get you in, get you out, get you all the info you need to know. As always, we're going to start off with storylines. We're going to cover kind of the biggest things we saw last week or the last couple of weeks and talk about whether there's some actionable info going on with that. We have about 3 different topics we're going to lead the show with today. And the first one I'm a little excited to cover because I think now is finally the time to have this discussion. And the question that we're going to be asking off the top of the show is, are the Chiefs dead? The dynasty looks to be on the ropes. They are a struggling team at the moment. We saw them play Denver last week in Denver in a game where they were favored. Everybody and their mother thought the Chiefs were at least going to come out with the win. Whether or not you thought they were going to cover, we thought they were going to come out with a win, and they didn't. They had the ball with chances to win, to seal the lead, to really do what the Chiefs always do, and ended up falling short and letting the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix, who, if you listened last week, we are not fans of their offense at all, yet that team still found a way to win the game. We know they have a good defense, but I really am stuck asking the question, are the Kansas City Chiefs at least in reset mode? Is this going to be finally the year the dynasty falls? Patrick Mahomes, championship game every year of his career? Maybe not this year, right? That's what it's looking like. So, Drew, I know you have some thoughts on this. If you want to chime in here and kind of, let's make this determination. Are the Chiefs dead? Is this an overreaction? What are we thinking?
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to use the word dead. I will say I'll give all three of us a bit of a pat on the back for not biting the cheese on the Chiefs last week. I think that line was really puzzling, getting or laying 3.5 on the road, and I don't think anybody expected them to come out of there with a loss. But the line was definitely strange. I hesitate to call them dead just because the schedule does lighten up a little bit after this week, but they're looking at a must-win at home against the Colts on Sunday, and uh, judging by that total up over 50, I think odds makers are expecting the Colts offense to continue to have success, which I agree with, and we'll see. Maybe get a like a low number on their odds to make the playoffs if they lose again, but yeah, a lot of concerns on offense. I think the defense is fine, but they just don't have anything going on the ground. Rice has added a little bit, but I think it's pretty clear the rest of the pieces there are just not contributing.
And yeah, I'd agree with you guys. I think the Chiefs are kind of sleepwalking at this point. And usually the Bills, they sleepwalk a little bit because they know, that they're going to make the playoffs either way. And now it's kind of catching up to them. I think they have a tough game against the Colts. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm thinking of betting the Colts. They've been struggling a little bit at stopping the run, and I think it's a real deciding week for them. If they lose this one, they might be out of it. So I think it's a real question mark going into last week and an even bigger question mark going into this one.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I know we saw something like this, what was it, 2 years ago with the Bills? I think they started 5-6 and then rattled off 6 in a row, made the playoffs, and if I'm not mistaken, at least made the divisional round, if not the championship game. I can't remember off the top of my head. So we have seen it one other time with a team like this, but I think the difference with that was the Bills made a change, right? They made a change in offensive coordinator that year from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady, and they were a different team, whereas I don't see the Chiefs becoming a different team. I think it's just a matter of, are the games they're losing going to become wins? Sure, it's possible, but I think it's a tightrope. And I agree with you guys that the Colts game is another game where, going into the season, you'd have thought was a win. After what I've seen, I can't say that, especially with how well the Colts can get the ball going on the ground with Jonathan Taylor. I know we like the Chiefs' defense, but if they can start to chew clock, keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, I know they try to play that low possession stuff, but if you can't get stops, that's going to be the key. And it's like, how many times can the defense be asked to go out, get the ball back, and you not do anything? That's what we kind of saw in Denver. So even, an offense in the Broncos, which I don't think is anything near the Colts' offense, was able to get the job done. We'll see what happens. I tend to agree with you guys. I'm not going to count them out till I really know they're out, but especially in the AFC this year, it won't shock me if we see the Chiefs 7 seed at best, maybe outside looking in. I know Brady had some down years, but he never missed the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, come the next couple of weeks, because we'll really kind of know probably in the next 2 weeks if we can actually call them dead.
I think the Chiefs have kind of already evolved over the last 2 years. Like their style really, as much as both fan bases don't want to admit it, the Broncos and the Chiefs are very similar teams. Obviously, different quarterbacks and very different opinions on both, but they want to play ugly, slow, grinded out football. The Chiefs are a huge under team, which is why we loved it last week and why it really was never in doubt in that game. But yeah, it's crazy that those two fan bases maybe think that their teams are so different and on different trajectories, but they're really the same. Very heavy defensive football, try to run the ball, but don't really have a ton of success doing it, and just really outcoach their opposition at every different level.
I think that's a good point. I think, especially if you ask a Kansas City Chief fan, that would be their worst nightmare to admit that. But I think you
Terrible.
might be right. I think you definitely might be right. And now, again, Bo Nix being the one outlying factor there. But the Broncos defense might be better than anything we've ever seen out of the Chiefs defense. But all right, so we're going to jump into storyline number 2. This is a team that is definitely not dead, but did not look good last week. Drew, I think you want to tell us about the Seahawks being for real, but there's one massive question mark on that roster for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit on the show. I know Cole took a nibble at Sam Darnold MVP, which I think you can use that one as toilet paper. That one might be done, unfortunately, but I come out of that game last week against the Rams, and I'm more impressed with the Seahawks than I have been all season. It's great when you can bully the Redskins and all these little sisters of the poor teams, but they controlled that game from the middle of the second quarter on. They're like, Stafford could not do much. They really gave up 14 points on 2 of Darnold's 4 interceptions, and they still have a chance. Well, if it wasn't for that punt getting downed at the 1-yard line, they probably get in a better spot to give Myers a chance to win that game. I was really impressed. Seahawks defense is for real. If Darnold can minimize the mistakes, there have been far worse quarterbacks that have gone on deep playoff runs with teams like that. They have the talent. They have the running game. I was really, really impressed with the Seahawks going to LA and really controlling a lot of that game.
I've been saying it all year. I think it's a top 3 defense in the league, and to come out and show against a team that everybody's thinking like is in the race for the 1 seed in the NFC, with an MVP caliber quarterback this year, they really showed how good they're playing. And to almost win a game where you throw 4 interceptions is unbelievable. I think Sam Darnold, just got a little a little too full of himself maybe, and was just playing so high the entire year that he just too aggressive with the ball, and I feel like he's learned he needs to tone it down a little bit, limit the mistakes, and that defense can carry him.
Yeah, I think he heard that a certain someone bet him to win MVP and said he couldn't let that happen. I think that's what happened. But, and the other thing, just to throw it out there, I don't know if it means anything, but does Sam Darnold just have a problem with the Rams defense? Because if you think about it, the last stinker we saw him play was the playoff game last year. And who was that against? It was against the Rams. So, is that maybe what it is? That, again, they got to play him one more time in the division. And you never know. If you're talking about a playoff run right now, it looks like the Rams might be the favorite in the NFC. You might have to see them in the playoffs, but maybe if you can avoid them, maybe Philly takes them out or somebody else takes out the Rams and you get a better draw. Maybe that's truly what it is. That might be dumbing it down too far, but at this point, in the last 2 years, you've seen Darnold play maybe 3 bad games. 2 of them were against the Rams. So I guess we'll see what happens there. I agree with you guys, though. I know that all of us in our personal power rankings have the Seahawks defense in the top 3, and I really think that there's not going to be a chance they ever fall below 3 again after what I saw against an offense that's been able to move the ball in pretty much everyone else. But that will bring up our third and final storyline. I threw this one out there, and it's a question that Seahawks game kind of made me ask, because while both teams look like they're legit contenders, you really don't think one is more dominant than the other, right? We just kind of discussed it. And In the AFC, we were talking about the Chiefs and the Bills and teams like that earlier. Those teams are wild card teams at the moment. So the question I have is there actually a good team in the NFL right now? I know there's teams with good records, and I know there's teams that have had big wins, but is there actually a team that is good that you know right now, you know, gun to the head, you would choose them to make it, you know, to the conference championship or the Super Bowl from their conference? I don't think there is. I think there's teams like Philly. I think there's teams like the Rams in the NFC that I expect to be there in the end, but I can't say with confidence on pretty much any of those teams. And then the AFC is so wide open, and I know we discussed last week that I think there's a lot of paper tigers currently leading the divisions in the AFC, but the more weeks they lead the division, the less chance it is for anyone to pass them. So it could be an absolute bloodbath in that playoff run. So again, I ask you guys, and you tell me if you think there is one. Is there a good team in the NFL? I don't know if there actually is, at least compared to what we've seen the last few years where there was at least one or two.
No, I don't disagree. I think, like many years, it's going to come down to who gets that home field, who gets that positioning in the playoffs, because you saw a perfect example on Sunday night. Jared Goff and the Lions going outdoors on the road looks much different than Jared Goff comfy cozy saying goodbye to his wife as he leaves and goes to the stadium. These are very different things. And granted, if say the Rams get the 1 seed, they're kind of on the fast track. Like, that's an indoor place. But the thesis really is what you're saying, is that I think there's not a lot of separation between these teams. It's really going to come down to the seeding matchups, and the AFC, I have no clue. Trying to put together a Super Bowl portfolio in the AFC is the biggest headache I've come across this season. I don't know who to believe in. All the Chiefs stuff I have is probably dead. I don't fully trust the Bills defense, and it's really hard to get behind the Drake May Express or Indiana Jones just pulling a rabbit out of his hat. It's really hard to pin down who's going to come out of the AFC, let alone the NFC gauntlet. So yeah, very tough to tell.
Yeah, adding on to that, exactly what you're saying. Like, you look at the NFC, or just look around the league, and every team just has a clear flaw. Like, you look at the Eagles, like, they're clearly a good team, but like they've struggled to, have offensive success this year. They haven't been throwing the ball well, especially down the field. Running the ball is also like slowed down. Goff, as you say, I have a rant on it in a minute, but just absolutely cannot play outdoors. Terrible. The Rams like get 4 interceptions and possibly can lose a game. And then the AFC, like you said, the Chiefs, and Bills are always the top teams for Super Bowl odds coming out of the AFC, and Chiefs keep losing, might not even make the playoffs. The Bills defense is just struggling, and obviously you just can't trust these new quarterbacks, or not new, I guess, but younger quarterbacks that don't have playoff experiences, younger coaches that don't have much playoff experiences. Yeah, I think your assessment is accurate. It's just everybody in the top 12 feels like on a similar playing field with one weakness and one very good strength.
Yeah, I think to kind of sum it all up, that genuinely speaking, looking at the current playoff landscape, I legitimately could make a case for maybe 10 of the 12 teams, if I was really going to, fight hard for it, that they could win the Super Bowl on a good path. I think I legitimately could. I think right now, the 49ers, I probably wouldn't, just because of their defensive struggles, and I think technically they're the 7 seed right now. And then depending on what you think of the Chargers offensive line, I might not argue them, but pretty much everyone else, I think I could probably make that argument. And you could tell me no, but I think I would at least have a counterpoint. So it'll be fun at least. I'm on record saying the NFL is a bad product, but maybe this will help, bring the product into a more entertaining space, especially in that first round of the playoffs when we usually get a couple of stinkers. So we'll see what happens. But Jake, you
keep throwing flags that aren't flags in the Eagles game.
Oh, you want to talk about a rant that maybe we need to do a whole rant episode on that one. But yeah, that's what I was going to say, Jake, is it's rant time. I want to get out of your way. You already mentioned it a little bit. Tell us about Jared Goff.
Yeah, I don't want to hear this name in the same sentence as elite quarterback ever again. If you can't play outdoors, you can't play. Half the teams in the league have stadiums outdoors. If you can't play outdoors, and you're not going to get the 1 seed, then you can't even be in the category of an elite quarterback. So, like, Eagles put up 16 points, and you were never even in that game. Let's just be real. You might have lost by 7, but you were never in that game. He was 13 of 30 or 14 of 37. Like, are you kidding me?
And don't get me started, as someone who bet his under pass attempts, I've never been so right that he was going to struggle to throw and wouldn't want to throw against his defense. I just didn't know they would keep running headfirst into the brick wall that was Jared Goff outdoors. So yeah, I'm on board with you.
Very bizarre play calling. Campbell seemed committed to wanting to throw the ball. I think I texted you guys in like the first or second drive of the game. He throws 3 times from inside his own 15. I think it was the very first drive. I was like, what are we doing here? I get that the Eagles front four is really dominant, but did you see the kicking highlights before the game? The balls were shooting all over the place like they were in the Giants game. Like this is not going to be where you find success, but Campbell decided that was where he was going to go, and that was an ugly watch once again in prime time.
Yeah, I tend to be a Dan Campbell defender, but sometimes I do think he falls into that meathead persona that we all think he has, which is like he will prove the entire league wrong. And so he'll just keep throwing the ball with Jared Goff when everybody watching is saying the same thing. I do think that happens from time to time. I think he gets accused of that a lot more than he should. But Sunday night might have been one of those times. Come on, Jahmyr Gibbs looked great. What are we doing? You're right. And the game was never out of reach. You could have run the ball the entire time. You were never in panic mode. And it was like they watched film of a different team or something. I don't know what happened. I don't know. But I think it's a valid rant, Jake. And if you can't tell, I think we all were invested in that game in some way. One of the ways I was invested in that game leads me into my rant, which is fantasy football sucks. I hate fantasy football. Over the years, I've just started to hate it more and more. I watch the league every week. I study in the offseason. I look at stats. I look at players. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who I pick. I get guys like Jared Goff who 8-9 weeks of the year look amazing, but then, the 1 week I need him to score a few points, he can't do anything. Or I have a receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown who I need to score 10 points to win a matchup in which I am the highest scoring team in the league playing a team with 3 guys that are either inactive or on bye, and I can't win because fantasy football is the most variable thing you can possibly participate in as a sports fan. And I am tired of losing to people who don't check their lineups. I am tired of losing to people who pick their team based on whose haircut is the best. We've got a couple of people in our league who are friends of mine who've played in our league for years. I think he auto-drafted his roster, and I think maybe one time in the last 2 years has ever even looked at his lineup. And this dude can win more than me. So maybe that's on me for not understanding the difference between fantasy football and everything else involved around the game. But I'm done with it. I'm very close to quitting. I unfortunately run 2 leagues myself, so I'm gonna have to put those up for auction or something. I don't know. But I'm done with fantasy football. I can't handle it anymore. It's really grown on me more and more, and especially with the growth of all the other ways you can get involved with sports now, with sports betting and daily fantasy and all that stuff. Why should I bother anymore when I have to watch stinkers like Sunday night just to be even more angry at something that I totally accept as luck at this point? So that's my rant. I'll get off my soapbox. I can't stand fantasy football.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of touched on it at the end with I find it conflicting a lot with my betting on a week-to-week basis. And just, I don't know what to root for at certain times. I had 2 separate matchups on Monday night where in a sequence of 4, I think it was actually 5 plays because it was the 4th down incompletion to CeeDee Lamb. I had a league where I was down 7 going into that play with Dak and CeeDee. If he makes that catch, goes into the end zone, I win that matchup. Fast forward 4 plays later, the Raiders have 4th and 1 at their own 10-yard line, down 17 with less than 3 minutes. You'd figure probably a punt, maybe a run on 4th and 1. No, instead we're going to drop back and Geno gets sacked. Somebody in my dynasty league started the Cowboys defense against me and needed 9 points to beat me. And sure enough, that was the 9th point that he needed, was that Geno Smith sack on 4th and 1 to end the game. Absolutely brutal. Who starts the Cowboys defense, period? But of course, Pete Carroll just stabs me right in the back one more time with a ridiculous decision to not punt or run the ball and let Geno take the 6th sack he had in that disgusting offensive performance.
Yeah, no, it's brutal out here. Fantasy football, and again, I'm done. Fantasy football. I'm sitting fantasy football this week. That's what I'm doing.
I don't think he's done.
All right, well, now that we got the rants out of the way, we can hop into the best bets. We actually went 5-1 last week. Best bets are 8-4 on the season so far, and Jake will argue a little bit because one of those was his Colts pick, that depending on the number you got, but we're going to hold ourselves to a high standard. We're going to call it 8-4, so that is 66% year to date. We're going to look to continue a winning week. The past is the past. We're on to the present. Jake is going to lead us off with his best bet this week. He's taking a favorite, and he's going to tell us why he thinks there's value.
Yeah, I'm taking Bills minus 5.5. It's at 6 now, so Bills minus 5.5 or Bills minus 6. The reason I'm taking this pick, it's more of a spot play. Texans are coming off an overtime win against the Titans. Teams that come off of overtime wins, especially in a short week, tend to not do well against the spread. Plus, whenever it's a short week, you always favor coaching. I think the Bills coaching staff is a lot better than the Texans. And the Bills are chasing the division, chasing the 1 seed. I think it's just a really good spot for them. I think they're going to come out and play well. And plus, I just think Davis Mills is not good at all, and their offense is struggling with him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. Quick turnaround on Thursday night tends to favor the favorites in this spot. I did see Collins and Anderson are both good to go. I don't know. I like Mills a lot more as a dog than as a big favorite, but yeah, no strong lean in this one. This could be a Josh Allen belt game, or it could be a grinded out gross fest if the Texans defense comes to play.
All right, well, Jake's going to lay it with the Bills. He's saying that the quick turnaround favors him. He's going to go ahead and do it. He said up to 6. That's right, Jake?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can get it up to 6, play it at 6. After that, yeah, I think he's saying stay away. But that'll take us to best bet number 2. This one's going to be Drew. He's got another favorite for us, and this one's a little bit bigger, but I can say that I think I kind of agree. Let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, I'm going with the Detroit Lions. Minus 10 I saw today as we start to get positive news on Jackson Dart's availability. Might be 10.5. I like it either way. I'll start with the offensive side of the ball, and I'll work into why this is such a great spot for the Lions. Obviously coming off a really gross game at Philadelphia on Sunday night, couldn't have looked worse. The Eagles did a great job of slowing down the running game, and as we already talked about, the Lions were more than happy for some reason to try to throw over and over with 15 to 20 mile an hour gusts outdoors. However, totally different setup here against the Giants back at home. Giants defense has been terrible against the run, giving up over 5.5 yards a carry. They are giving up explosive runs of over 10 yards on over 17% of their plays. I think this matchup sets up really well for Gibbs and Montgomery to get going again. On the other side of the ball, defensively, the Lions have struggled mostly against outside and slot receivers, specifically against outside receivers, giving up 7 touchdowns and just over 1,000 yards. This is not where the Giants really thrive, as if we do get Jackson Dart, I think we see a much more concentrated rushing attack, and that's actually been where the Lions have had a bit more success. Also have been very good against mobile quarterbacks, only given up 200 yards rushing on just over 60 rushing attempts this season by quarterbacks. So I think both sides of the ball favor the Lions in this one. Slight edge for the Lions in the special teams department, with Bates having a decent year and the Giants continuing to struggle with their kickers. I think we're on Younghoe Koo now. But the main reason I love this is the spot. Goff and Campbell off a loss, 22-8 against the spread, 13-0 in their last 13 games off a loss, and 8 of those have been as a favorite of more than 4 points. Love the spot. Think this is a huge bounce back that we've come accustomed to for the Lions.
I can't argue with it. Like I said, I think I lean that way. I just happen to be deathly allergic to laying double digits, so I don't know if I can get there with this number. But it kind of feels like, and there's actually 2 spots on the board this week that I am really trying to see if I can get some allergy medicine to take, but it's this and the Titans game against Seattle. I think both of these are name your number spots. So I won't be surprised to see this be a 30-40 point win. I think you're right. It's a classic Dan Campbell, Jared Goff and company spot. And especially off the loss, they're like the one team I believe actually like genuinely shows up pissed off the next week. I know everyone says that, but I actually believe it with the Lions. So I think it's the right side. We'll see if I get there. It just might make me really sick to do it, but I think I might get there. So that will lead into the third best bet, my first best bet. I would like to take the Browns and Raiders under 37. It's under 36.5, under 36. I wouldn't go any lower than 36, but anywhere between that number depending on what's in the market. And the logic here is pretty simple. Both of these offensive lines and offenses in general are pretty terrible. In particular, the Raiders' offensive line, as we saw last week, made the Dallas defense look good. And if you look at the metrics for the Browns, they're ninth in pressure rate, they're second in sack rate. And Myles Garrett, I think, is trying to set the sack record. And what a better time to do it than against this, very pitiful offensive line for the Raiders. And then I know the Raiders D-line isn't as great as a whole, but Max Crosby is still a menace, and Cleveland has been very susceptible to edge rushers this year, even against teams without, premier edge rushers. They've been getting pressure. And then you want to go to the offensive side of the ball, or the expanded offensive side of the ball. The Browns they haven't scored more than 17 points pretty much all season, except for the one time against the Jets, right? That's the only game I think they've gone over 17 points. So you're looking at a pretty hard ceiling. And when it comes to betting an under, you love teams with a hard ceiling. Then on top of that, the Raiders have only gone over 20 twice this year. One of them was that overtime game against the Jags where they scored 6 points through three quarters. So I'm willing to kind of write that off as a fluke. And in general, I just don't trust the offenses. Again, the Cleveland D's elite. The Raiders D has looked good in spots. And then on top of it, too, it's looking like it's going to be Shedeur Sanders' first start. Say what you want about him. Rookie quarterbacks just in general do not do well in their first starts. It's a trend. It's as old as time. So even if you believe in him, it's a good chance that he struggles. And if he doesn't struggle, they're going to try and keep it conservative, keep him in the pocket, keep him checking the ball down, growing his confidence. I think that leads to underball. So I'm going to go under 37, under 36.5, under 36. Again, don't go below 36. But I like the under in the Browns-Raiders game.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll get into it because I have best bet in this game as my second best bet. But I completely agree with you. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. Both these offenses are very bad and have struggled a lot this year. And like you said, the Browns' defense is really, really good. And Crosby will wreak havoc on Shedeur, and it'll just be low-scoring.
All right, Jake's on board with me. So let's jump right in. He mentioned it already. Jake's second best bet. He's taking a team in that game we just talked about. Jake, why don't you let us know who it is and why you like them?
Yeah, I'm taking the Browns plus the points, 3.5, 4. I really like them at any of those numbers. It continues to move. The line movement is really dependent on, or is predicated on Shedeur and rookie quarterbacks and everything you mentioned earlier, but I really think it comes down to the scoring. The Raiders this year have not been good against any good defense. Against Denver, they scored 7 points. The Chiefs against the Chiefs, they scored 0. Against the Chargers, they scored 9, and against the Patriots, they scored their highest good defense score, which is 13 points. And if you're telling me that I can get 3+ points as an underdog against a team that cannot score against good defenses, I'm going to take it every time. So I really don't think the Shedeur handicap is that big of a deal. Like you said, I think it's going to be low scoring, and always give me the points when it's a low scoring game with a good defense.
Couldn't disagree more. I am on the other side of this one personally. Have not touched the 3.5, but I can't explain the road versus home splits for the Browns defense, but they seem to be real. I don't know what it is. If you look at even just at their points per game, it's like 10 points higher on the road than it is at home. And I just had to watch that Geno game just like everybody else, and I think that's a little bit fresher in people's minds. I see that 3.5, and I see a trap. I don't like the Browns here. I think the Raiders get right, and nothing in that Shedeur performance last week tells me that the Browns are going to be able to move the ball. You see 8 in the box, commit to stopping Judkins, and force Shedeur to do anything. So I'm on the other side of this one, but I wish you luck.
Yeah, I don't think the Raiders have a get right. I think they just are wrong. So like I said, I think it's just both teams are horrible on offense. Give me the points.
We'll see what happens. But he says give him the defense plus the points. It's a tried and true method. But you want to talk about some plus points. Drew, you're taking a lot of plus points, and I actually heard my dog downstairs barking. I think that might have been trying to tell us something about your pick here, but go ahead and tell us about the dog you're taking.
Yep, I like the Bengals. Line is moving a little bit. I'll get into why that is at the very end of my spiel, but I'm taking the Bengals plus 7.5 to 8.5 against the Patriots. A lot of this is predicated on the Bengals' offensive advantages in this game. Let's get out ahead of it. This is not a belief in the Bengals defense. This group is not going to suddenly morph into the 85 Bears. The Patriots are going to have success throwing the ball against this defense. But the biggest weakness for the Bengals has been against tight ends. I don't worry about the New England tight ends as much as others. Henry and Hooper don't scare me too much there, but I do think the Patriots will have success. This is predicated on the fact that the Patriots are running as hot as any team in the league. They've won 8 in a row. Teams since 2010 on an 8-game winning streak or more are 39, 61, and 2 against the spread. That is 39%. Love that. The offensive advantages for the Bengals in this one. Do I wish we had Jamar Chase? Absolutely. Don't love that he got suspended for a little hawk tooey right in Jalen Ramsey's eye, but that's okay. We still got we still got T. Higgins, we got Yoshi, and I'll get into a different touchdown scorer later who I like, but a lot of advantages for the Bengals in this one. The Patriots defense has been great against the run, great against explosives, but they have been susceptible to wide receivers, giving up 14 touchdowns and just over 1,400 yards. I think this is a huge game for T. Higgins and the Bengals passing attack. And, did I mention that Joe Burrow practiced in full on Wednesday? I don't know that he's going to play. I like it either way if it's Flacco or Burrow, but what a boost that would be to a team this is everything for them. If they don't win this, their season is over, and if we get Joe Burrow, all the better. But I would go out and grab 7.5 now. I think it probably moves up to 8.5 again if Burrow doesn't play, but I like it either way.
Yeah, with this game, I think it's very interesting. I think this is a classic too many points spot with a team that, while has looked good, have they really earned the right to just lay over a touchdown? Especially against, like you said, a potent offense. I'm not going to co-sign the Bengals defense either. It could very well be a shootout, and in particular, I think that's the only way the Bengals stay inside this number. I don't see it being a defensive struggle, but I think it's definitely a real going to be a test for the Patriots. And maybe we come out of this and we say, yep, the Patriots are legit. They deserve the right to do that. But until proven otherwise, we really haven't seen them do it against a team with at least one side of the ball of this caliber. So I think you're right. Hide inside that number. Maybe it lands 7 exactly, and you're cruising with the hook or more, depending on what number you get. And you're right. I don't think Joe Burrow's playing either. I think they're saving him for next week against the Ravens. But if they decide this is it, and he decides this is it, this is the only chance they have, maybe they rush him back. So we'll see. I think absolutely Drew's logic on getting ahead of the number makes sense. That difference between 7.5 and 8.5 is not really going to hurt you, but the difference between 7.5, 6.5, especially with Burrow, could be a big difference. So I think get it now if you like it, and I'm on board with Drew's play here. All right, so that'll bring up 6th best bet. It's my 2nd best bet. I am going to lay the 2.5 with the Bears against the Steelers. The reason for this is that turnovers are going to decide this game. And on top of that, the pass rush creating those turnovers is going to decide this game. The Steelers' defense is top 12 in the league against the run. That is usually what the Bears want to do. Ben Johnson wants to establish the run. But the Bears also have proven they can win through the air this year. Caleb Williams has looked a lot better. And so that's where really the meat of this handicap comes in, is the Bears are 6th in pass protection this year. They have only allowed 16 sacks. They're under 5% sack rate. And Caleb Williams himself is 8th in sack avoidance. And we know that is the engine of the Steelers team. It is the turnovers created by the pass rush with Watt and Highsmith and Herbig and Hayward and all of those guys up front. That is where they win games. When they beat teams like the Colts, who are an offensive juggernaut, it's because they force turnovers by creating havoc up front. And again, I just don't think this Bears team is as susceptible to that. And the Bears aren't going to necessarily be dissuaded by throwing the ball anymore. I think maybe early in the season they would have been, but now they won't be. And then you want to dive a little deeper into the Steelers defense. They run a ton of cover 1. They run a ton of cover 3. They love the one high safety. And Caleb Williams hasn't turned the ball over against that this year. They run it 60% of the time. And again, 0 turnovers with a couple of touchdowns thrown in there. I think I'll take my chances there. And then on top of that, the Bears offense and that Ben Johnson system loves the tight end. I think it could be a big day for Colston Loveland. Steelers are terrible against the tight end. We saw Tucker Kraft eat them up a few weeks ago. We've seen some other tight ends have big days. Even some no-name tight ends have had some big days against the Steelers. So I think this could be a kind of a breakout game for Colston Loveland if he hasn't had one already. And then if we look to the other side of the ball, the Steelers offense, I mean, Rodgers, it looks like he's playing. But he's injured, so what are we going to get out of that? He's already limited in his ability to throw it deep, which is how you have to beat this Bears offense. I'm not sure about Jalen Warren at this point, but if he's not there either, it looks like he's trending not towards playing unless it's already been made official. But so then we're already missing him, who is a threat out of the backfield, if that's the case. And then just, again, Steelers are 26 in overall passing yardage. That's how you have to beat the Bears. So you're telling me there's a bad matchup for the Steelers offense, good matchup for the Bears offense. I'm going to go ahead and take under a field goal with this Bears team. So I'm laying the 2.5 with the Bears.
Yeah, I both agree and kind of disagree with this take. So I do agree with everything you're saying. Steelers offense struggling. The one thing, though, is the Steelers have started to run more zone coverage instead of man as they've shifted Ramsey to safety, and they've actually been handling tight end very well in their last two games when Jalen Ramsey started playing more free safety. James Pierre has been moved to outside corner, and he's been playing exceptional in the last two games, as well as our pass rush. I do agree. I think the Bears are the right side if you get the 2.5, but I did tease the Steelers, and I feel like it's going to land in that range of Steelers probably losing from 3 to 7. So I do agree, but I do think it's going to be a closer game than people think.
That's fair, and obviously with Tomlin, that's always a risk. I just think this is not the quintessential Tomlin spot. And while it's not like a true trap game or sandwich spot, the Steelers are off of a divisional game last week. They have another conference game next week against the Bills, so maybe throw that in there too. I think it's a fair point to bring up the Steelers and their shift on defense. I think Ramsey has been better at safety than he was at corner. I've trusted in him all year. I was big going into the season. I'm going to trust in Ben Johnson once again. I think he's going to figure it out. I think they're going to take care of business. All right, so that's the best bets. All right, I'm going to do the like and subscribe shout out real quick, and then we'll do guys naming dudes. All right, now that we wrapped up best bets, we're going to jump into the guys naming dudes segment where we give you the touchdown scores you need to bet this week. Before that, we want to make sure that you guys like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications so that way you never miss out on any of our uploads. We put out our podcast every week to get you ready for the next week of the NFL season as well as throw in all those other bets. So again, like, subscribe, make sure you get those as soon as they drop so you can get in on these numbers before they move and get the best possible value on all of your bets moving forward. We're going to jump into our guys naming dudes segment where we give you the touchdown scores that we like on Sunday. We start with the first games on Sunday. We go all the way through the Sunday night game, and then we're going to use some of these names come Sunday when we put out our 4-leg touchdown score parlay for the people. That'll be out Sunday morning before games are off, so if you want to join us on that, check out our social medias for that. We're going to start with Drew. He's going to cover 4 games for us, then we're going to hop to Jake. He'll cover 4 games for us, and then I'll round us out with the last 4 games of the day. Drew, take us away. Tell us who you like to score this week.
Yeah, I'll start in Green Bay with the Packers and the Vikings. I like Christian Watson. I see him sitting around plus 170. With Jacobs probably slated to miss this game, I see Green Bay leaning a bit more on the passing game here. Vikings have been a lot better against the run. And since Kraft went out, Love has targeted Watson a lot more in the red zone, 2 red zone targets the last 2 weeks, each of which resulted in touchdowns. I think we see that continue here. I like Watson to make it 3 in a row. Moving to the Chiefs and the Colts, high total game, so I did put together 2 different touchdown scores here. I like Rashee Rice sitting at plus 115. Colts passing defense has been really their one weakness. I've been very skeptical of this Colts defense all year. A lot of that has been game script, but with the Sauce Gardner addition, they have been a little bit better. I still think Rice is a value here to get in the end zone. I think the Chiefs are going to be needing to play catch up all day. I like him at that number, plus 115. Second guy I like in this game, Josh Downs. A lot of attention has been given to Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren, and rightfully so. But it's actually Josh Downs that leads the team in red zone catches since week 6, 6-5 against Tyler Warren. So I like him in this spot. Prior to that Atlanta game, which was a stinker for him, he had scored in 3 straight games, and at a plus 350, I think that's a crazy price. I love him in this game. Moving on to our next game, Bengals Patriots. I like Matt Collins here, sitting at plus 250. Like I touched in my Bengals love, this defense is still atrocious and still highly susceptible to both tight ends and receivers getting into the end zone, giving up 6 to outside receivers this year and 12 to tight ends. Matt Collins has seen a huge uptick in usage over the last few weeks, seeing just over 60% snap rate and 3 red zone targets in his last 4 games. I like him at that number, plus 250. Moving on to the Bears and Steelers. Jake touched on it a little bit. Jake and Cole touched on it a little bit with the Steelers' struggles against tight ends. I don't see the improvement that Jake mentioned. They went up against Gadsden, who got hurt in the first quarter, and then against the vaunted Noah Fant last week. So don't think they've really gone up against a true tight end alpha like Colston Loveland. So I'm going with him at plus 300. I expect him to continue to be involved in the offense as he has been since their bye week. You like to see that rookie spike coming out of the bye, and he has seen that, seeing 5 red zone targets since then, and 2 touchdowns. So I like Loveland sitting at 3-1.
Let's start with the Ravens Jets. I'm going to continue the trend that Drew has with the tight end position, and I'm going to say Mark Andrews at plus 170. The Jets are the 2nd worst team in the NFL at giving up touchdowns to the tight end position. Mark has also been seeing a lot more targets and a lot more upswing since Lamar has come back. I really like the look at plus 170 there. The next game is the Titans-Seahawks game, and this will be more of a surpriser. I'm going with Kenny Walker instead of Charbonnet here. 1, more value, plus 125. I went over it last week. Titans are the worst team in the NFL at giving up touchdowns to the running back at 1.6 per game. The reason why I like Kenny more in this spot is Kenny has looked at his carries in the red zone. Kenny has 25 carries compared to 28 with Charbonnet in the red zone. 16 of Charbonnet's carries are within the 10. So Kenny gets a lot more carries from the 10 to 20 yard line, and the Titans have actually given up 6 touchdowns of 10 to 15 yards or more from running backs. I really think that it's a good opportunity for Kenny to break one, and then he still has 10 carries within the 10-yard line. So it's not like, if he doesn't do that, it's over. Next game is Lions-Giants. I'm going with another tight end here. I'm going with Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson's he's had a pretty good year this year with scoring touchdowns. Also, the Lions, the majority of the touchdowns they've given up this year have actually been to the tight end. Their running and receiving defense has been pretty good this year, especially in the red zone. The reason I also like it is also going to be a passing script. The Giants, obviously 13-point underdogs, so they're going to be behind the whole game, and I like the opportunities that he's going to get. And the last game I have is Cardinals versus Jags. Going back to the well, I think this is a bet and don't think. Trey McBride, he's been insane. McBride has been almost an auto bet, basically, with Brissett in the game. Brissett took over the starting role 5 weeks ago, and McBride has scored 6 touchdowns, 1 in each game. So an absolute monster. The Jags, just to add insult to injury, are the 3rd worst at giving up TDs and points, fantasy points to the tight end. So love that spot. And then I also have a long shot in this game. I like Trevor Lawrence at plus 300. Trevor Lawrence has scored a rushing touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games. Basically, he's just been continuing to carry the ball inside the red zone in tight games, and pretty much every game they play is a tight game. I like it as more of a long shot.
I have 2 picks in a game I bet the under 37 on. I like in the Raiders-Browns game, Brock Bowers and Quinshon Judkins. Both of them are right around the plus 120 point The reason being, the Browns, the one place the defense is super susceptible actually is tight end. Brock Bowers, I don't think he needs any explanation. He might be the one tight end better than the guy Jake was just talking about, and Trey McBride. So I think take a shot there, especially if you think the Raiders stand a chance to win in this game. If you want to look more on the Cleveland side, the Raiders defense has given up a lot of touchdowns. They're top 5 most touchdowns given up to the running back. Take Quinshon Judkins. I think that's the way the Browns offense is going to have to get the game going regardless. So I think take him if you like the Brown side. Jumping over to the Cowboys-Eagles side, I want to take advantage of the Cowboys secondary, and I want to do it with the guy that Jalen Hurts loves for long shots. I'm going to take the plus 165 on Devontae Smith. Give me a shot with that. Again, I think the Eagles might be able to throw the ball against this team, maybe, bury some of the demons they've been having on offense the last few weeks against the get-right defense. In the Saints versus Falcons game, it was hard to find somebody to want to bet in this game. I'm going to take a shot at Darnell Mooney plus 270, especially with Kirk Cousins playing quarterback and Drake London being out. I mean, he's going to have to throw the ball to somebody. I'm not going to get involved with Kyle Pitts. When Darnell Mooney and Kirk Cousins play together, Darnell Mooney has put out some of the best performances of his career. So I'll take a chance at plus 270 that he's basically the wide receiver 1 for Kirk Cousins. And then in the Sunday night game with the Rams and the Bucks, I'm going to lay a little bit of chalk. It's anywhere between minus 150 to minus 170, but I'm going to take Kyren Williams. The Rams have been running the ball well the last few weeks. The Bucks are susceptible to the run. It's kind of the one way they're really susceptible as well. And there's really kind of that triad of players that you want to look for every week in the Rams games with Kyren, Devontae, and Puka. Let's go ahead and take Kyren this week.
I agree. You could even sprinkle on the 2+ in that game with Kyren Williams.
The 2+, yeah. If you want a little Sunday night sweetener, I can get behind that one too. Or even, I know we've thrown it out there before in our group chat, but if you want to go ahead and throw that little single game parlay of Puka, Adams, Kyren, all the score, it can be kind of a fun Sunday night bet too. So we're gonna hop into the primetime picks now. We're gonna cover the Thursday night game, the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game. Each of us took one of those games. We're gonna get you at least one play we like, if not a couple of plays we like in each game. Jake is gonna lead us off. He already touched on the Bills as his best bet, but he's got some more action for you on the Thursday night game between the Bills and Texans. Jake, take us away.
Yeah, as I already said, have the Bills minus 5.5/6.5. I also have 2 other plays for you. Houston team total under 18.5. I described it earlier in the best bet segment. Davis Mills, enough said. I just think that the Houston offense is terrible with him. And then I got a sneaky touchdown score. Ray Davis, anytime touchdown. You might be asking, who's Ray Davis? Yes, he is a running back that plays for the Bills. So he is plus 1,900, and yet Davis has had 4 carries and 3 catches in the red zone this year with 1 touchdown. Plus, it's a script that I think the Bills are going to come out firing on all cylinders and take a lead, so you could get more backup carries. I just think it's a good look for the value it is. I'm not saying put anything big on it, but sprinkle a little bit, 0.1, 0.2 units, could be a good Thursday.
Awesome. And then for those who do have the FanDuel Sportsbook, I know they have the touchdown jackpot promo. Is this your official pick for that, Jake, or are you just sprinkling him on the side?
That is what I put as my touchdown jackpot.
Okay, so that's Jake's touchdown jackpot. If you want to hop in with him and try to win some of the FanDuel money, that's the pick. It's a big number. All right, we're going to hop to Sunday night. It's Rams versus Bucks. Drew, you've got a couple plays for us. What do you got?
Yeah, hey, look at this number, and I really want to be on the Bucks, but it has elements of that game against the Bills last week where I know the books aren't my friend, and giving me this many points scares me. So I do think the Rams are a good tease piece. I think there's a lot of things that they're going to have success with on offense. So having the Rams in a teaser with another leg, I think, is the play. I also like a couple props. Cade Otton, we hit a couple weeks ago his reception ladder against the Patriots. The Rams have struggled a bit at times against opposing tight ends from a yardage perspective. So I do like his over receiving yards. And then Bucky Irving returned to practice today in limited capacity. I don't expect him to play, and assuming he doesn't, I think we see another strong usage game from Sean Tucker. I think it's pretty clear that he's the guy over Rachaad White, which, thank goodness, it's about time. So I like Sean Tucker over his receiving rush yard combo.
Oh, you can't do my boy Chad White that dirty. He's put in some good time in Tampa. Let's let him at least go gracefully.
No.
But, all right, that'll take us to Monday night. I get to take that game, and that is 49ers versus Panthers. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to say take the Panthers +7. I can't trust this Niners defense to win by margin. I know Brock Purdy's back, so that gives a little bit of a boost to the offense, but this Niners defense is a problem, and it will continue to be a problem the rest of the year because the injuries are not going to be fixed. That's just the truth. They're bottom 5 versus the run. That's how this Panthers offense is driven. They ride Rico Dowdle hard. When Chuba Hubbard gets in there, they'll hand him the ball too, and it's what makes Bryce Young more comfortable. More importantly, Bryce Young is fantastic. Maybe not fantastic, but is way better against teams that cannot pressure him. And there is absolutely no pressure coming from this Niners D-line. The Panthers are a top 5 graded offensive line. I think it's just too many points. I think it's a classic case of too many points. Niners probably find a way to win this game. I trust Shanahan enough. I think Brock Purdy does make a difference. But 7 just feels like too many points. Go ahead, take the +7. Enjoy your Monday night. Hopefully it stays close and you're enjoying it the whole way. All right, now that we covered the primetime games, we're going to hop into the prop corner. We've got a few extra props that we're all targeting this week, and we think that there's some value in each of these, and you can put them in a parlay, add them to a play you already like on your own. We just think that these are worth catching your eye and definitely worth putting some money on if you're looking for that little bit of extra action. So Jake's going to take us away with his first.
The problem I'm going to play is the in the Patriots and Bengals game, Hunter Henry over receiving yards. It's already been discussed early in the podcast, but the Bengals are the worst team in the NFL at giving up yards to the tight end. Plus, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think both offenses are going to come out shooting. And I don't like Drew said earlier, Hunter Henry is not really a scary tight end, so his number's not going to be huge. So I think you're going to get good value on a tight end that can put up some good yards against a team that struggles.
All right, Drew, where are you looking?
All right. I think me and Cole are a little bit in the same thinking here. I like Luther Burden over his receiving yards. It was at 19.5 last week. Probably get something in the low 20s this week. Pretty simple. He's seen an uptick in usage the last 2 weeks since he returned from that concussion. Saw almost a 50% snap count the last 2 weeks. 8 targets. Both of those games in totally different scripts, so it can be a trailing game script or a leading game script. If you're the Steelers in this one, all the focus should be on trying to limit the Bears' rushing attack. I think that leads to a bit more opportunities in the passing game. I like Burden to go over that receiving yard total, given his uptick in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and Drew knows on the head. We're thinking the same way. I like Rome Odunze over receiving yards. His number's going to be bigger than Luther Burden's, but I think that this is, as I handicapped earlier, the way that the Bears are going to beat the Steelers. They're going to throw the ball. Rome Odunze is their best man beater. The Steelers do typically like to run a lot of man, but even if they don't, he has had a couple of touchdowns that gets cover 3 as well this year. I think he's obviously emerged as the number 1 wide receiver. He's Caleb's favorite target. I think I'll take a chance. His number is floated depending on the game. The number isn't officially out yet. We'll put that out when it comes out, when we put these clips out later in the week. But I definitely think Rome Odunze over receiving yards is going to be a look. And then the other one I want to take is I'm going to join in a little bit of the fun of bagging on the Browns and Shedeur Sanders. I'm taking Shedeur Sanders under completions. I don't know if you watched the game last week, but he looked terrible. He was off rhythm. He was under pressure, and there was just a lot going wrong, and that was in a fill-in spot. Rookies making their first start, we covered it earlier, terrible against the spread. They're also just terrible when it comes to their statistics in most cases. I don't have a lot of faith in this Browns offense. I think I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders under completions. I don't think he's on the same page with his receivers quite yet. Go ahead and take a stab at it when that line comes out. Go under the completions for Shedeur Sanders.
Hey, still Browns +3 though, +3.5.
I'm either going to look like a genius or a donkey.
Well, now that you've got the props that you need to be looking for this weekend, we every week like to throw out 1 or 2 future bets for you to take a look at. These are a lot of ways you can get involved at an angle that we're seeing, maybe a mispriced number, something along those lines. We actually have 1 NFL future and 1 college future for you this week. We're kind of changing it up, throwing it into a couple of different pots here to expend your capital. I'm going to cover the NFL one. That is going to be Tetairoa McMillan, Offensive Player of the Year at +400, +450 is kind of what we're seeing in the market right now. The number always tends to fluctuate with these award bets, especially week to week, so look for the best number, shop around as best as you can. The reason I'm looking at Tetairoa McMillan is simple. It's really become a 3-person race for Offensive Rookie of the Year. The leader in the clubhouse all season has been Emeka Egbuka, But if you look at it, Tetero McMillan has closed the gap on all the numbers. Tet now has more yards and he has more catches than Igbuka. Igbuka has played one less game and does have a couple of extra touchdowns. So again, it's going to be neck and neck. They're both in a division race. I could see a world where maybe the Panthers have a big game against the Buccaneers. Maybe Igbuka doesn't have as good of a game, and all of a sudden, all of the narrative goes away, and now we're just looking at a dead even race with the two receivers. Obviously, the one other looming figure in this three-person race is Jackson Dart. They're always going to lean towards a quarterback with these types of awards, but Jackson Dart's already had injury problems. The Giants are already kind of a dumpster fire. So I think there's a chance that Jackson Dart just doesn't put up the stats needed to get there, even though he is a quarterback. So if you look at the field right now, Tetero McMillan is actually third behind both of those guys I just named. I think he's as even as any of the other two to win this award. So I'm absolutely going to take a shot at that plus 400, plus 450 number. Again, shop around for the best number. But if you have any faith in him to continue elevating the way he has, whereas Igbuka seems to have plateaued a little more, I think it's absolutely worth a stab in a field that I think, again, is narrowed down to 3, and by the end it might only be the 2. So I think I'll take the stab at Tetero. But as far as the college futures, Jake's got a real long shot college future for us to play, and this one is predicated on playing it now based on some outcomes this weekend, so he's going to let us know what that is and how to play it.
Yeah, I'm looking at Oregon/USC to win the Big Ten. The reason I like it is mainly just the number that you're getting. You're getting plus 3,000 or higher on either team. And basically the logic behind it is they each play each other this week, so obviously one of them has to come out with a victory. I don't really think that the next week matchups are too difficult for either team. Oregon plays Washington, but I think Washington is not very good. They have a decent defense, but I think both teams can roll through those games. And basically it comes down to the Michigan against Ohio State game. Michigan is going to be at worst plus 1,000 to beat Ohio State. And Michigan has proven that in years, the past 3 years, has beaten Ohio State every time. Ohio State somehow always seems to struggle against them, and they're even better this year. So if you're going to give me that, like, what I think is all they have to do is win the final week, whichever team comes out on top, at a plus 1,000, and you're getting plus 3,000, and then you can hedge against Indiana in the title game, I think it's just good value.
So let me make sure. So I know obviously USC has the tiebreaker over Michigan. So if Michigan beats Ohio State, they get to go, assuming they win out. If Oregon wins out and Michigan beats Ohio State, Oregon has the tiebreaker over Michigan? Is that just a common opponents?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, wow, a lot to take in there because I do have a win total under on Oregon, and I think they could lose to either team, in my opinion. I think that game is in Washington next week because they're at home this week. Jedfish has been a little disappointing, obviously losing to Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, but Washington has been a thorn in Oregon's side for 10, 15 years. I don't think it's a guarantee they win that game. They're obviously going to be favored, maybe by 7 plus, but
probably more than that. I mean, they're 10-point favorite against USC, who's a better team.
I don't. That's a hot take. USC can't stop a nosebleed. No one hates Oregon more than I do. They should have lost to Iowa, and I shouldn't have to complain about this future anymore. But I get the thinking because you're banking on Michigan having a chance against Ohio State in a game that they're probably 10 to 4, probably 14, somewhere in that range, underdogs.
Yeah, like plus 1,000 to win.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
So you're getting a better number on a Michigan money line, essentially, is what you're targeting. I like the value. Do I think it happens? Because then they need to go and beat Ohio State in the title game. Probably not. Indiana in the title
hedge.
Game. Yeah.
That's what I was saying. That you get that so that you can hedge in the title game, basically.
Yeah. I don't know. In my heart of hearts, I think USC has a chance. That number tells me otherwise this week, floating around 9 to 10, but I see the value. I just don't see the path necessarily.
Yeah, I guess a couple of notes I have are, number one is, technically speaking, while it's near impossible, if Indiana loses to Purdue, There is technically a path for one of these two teams. Just throwing that out there. That is involved in what you get with this bet. And more importantly, I think what Jake is saying about betting both teams is absolutely important because I kind of disagree with his take about Washington. I think that basically what it is Oregon is likely to win this game. If they end up losing, USC gets to play UCLA. USC will probably be close to a double-digit favorite against UCLA. So you're going to want to have the USC ticket just in case if you do have that faith in this being basically a juiced-up Michigan money line. That being said, I don't know if I can get there with the Michigan money line take. I've been the guy who's taken Ohio State the last 3 years against Michigan, so what do I know? But I don't know. I think if you're going to play this, Jake is playing it the correct way. Take both teams, ride it out, see what happens. Again, maybe Purdue beats Indiana, and that's the crazy thing we didn't expect, but you still get this home anyway, so who knows?
I wonder what USC's number is just to make the title game. I do have a ticket on that I took preseason that I kind of just assumed was dead after that Illinois game. But even if it's like right at the Michigan money line number you'd expect, or maybe a little more, I think that path, I guess because you could just do rollover like USC money line and Michigan money line. Yeah. So I think maybe what you're saying with taking both sides a little bit now makes sense. I'd love for the chaos to ensue. Nothing would please me more, but we'll see.
I agree.
I think it'd just be interesting to see like Ohio State after the dominant season not make the Big Ten.
Yeah, I honestly am in love with the idea. I'm in love with the idea of Ryan Day being a national champion, but like on the hot seat because he can't beat Michigan. I just am in love with that idea. All right, now that we've covered those futures, we're going to jump into our last main segment here. It's the best of the rest. This is where we kind of throw out anything we didn't quite have a place for, something we like maybe in a different sport or didn't love as much, so we didn't want to give it out as a best bet. We've got a few plays here. Jake's going to lead us off. Look like he's got a round robin play, so that's kind of fun. Jake, what teams are you round robining this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going for the chaos angle. Pretty much most of the +3 teams that I think have a decent chance to win the game outright. I like Cleveland, Dallas, Indianapolis, and Arizona. Dallas always seems to play well against the Eagles. I think the Chiefs, you already described it, they're kind of in that make or break, dying ship mode. Arizona, I just think, they've come out of 2 beltings. I think they're ready for a good win at home against a team that their offense has kind of struggled a little bit. And then we already talked about Cleveland. I really like Cleveland. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I like a round robin of these 4 money lines just to get some value. And, if you hit 3 or even all 4, then, you have a really good day. Small unit, probably like half unit total.
Perfect. And then are you going to play that by 2s, 3s, and 4s, or just the 3s and 4s?
I'm just going to play the 3s and 4s. I just don't see, the value because they're kind of short dogs for the 2-way.
Totally makes sense. Just wanted to clarify that for the people. So Jake says round robin those 4 teams by the 3s and the 4s. All right, Drew, it looks like you actually agree with one of those round robin teams for your pick. What do you got?
I do, yeah. I haven't bet it myself, but I like the Cardinals getting 2.5, 3 here against the Jaguars. I've been a believer in this Cardinals team and have unfortunately had to eat some crow the last 2 weeks as they've given up 40 plus to 2 divisional opponents. But I do think this lines up a little better for them, a little bit more susceptible to the pass, clearly. That's not where Jacksonville has had a lot of success. This is a run-first team. If you're able to slow them down a little bit there, you rely on Trevor Lawrence through the air, which is not something we want to see. Newton looks like he may miss this game. He's really come into his own in his rookie year. That would be huge. Jacoby Brissett, as I've talked about on this show, continues to be a good quarterback for them. They're going to be without Harrison again, but that was not the problem a week ago against San Francisco. It was completed 47 of 57, NFL record for completions in a game. I think their offense can have success here, and I agree with Jake. I like the Cardinals in this spot.
All right, and that'll bring it to me. I've got 2 plays on the best of the rest section. I like the Saints. They're currently sitting at -1.5, maybe -2.5 against the Falcons. The reason I have this in this section is simply because I had it down as my best bet when it was at plus money early in the week. It moved into minus money. I just couldn't in good conscience make it my best bet, but I did play the game and still do recommend it. Anything below 3. I think Kirk Cousins is a shell of his former self. I think this Saints team has looked a little bit better as of recent weeks. I think Tyler Shough might actually be a better quarterback than Spencer Rattler. Give him a little bit of a boost. They're coming off a bye. I think take a shot with the Saints against an ailing Falcons team who might be on quit watch. And then with my other best bet, I am taking Charlotte plus 43.5 or the best available number against Georgia in college football this weekend. Kirby Smart is 0-15 lifetime as a favorite of more than 38 points. 0-15. They just don't show up to play these games because they don't have to. So go ahead, take the stinky number with Charlotte. They might not score a point. They might score 7. That hopefully is all we're going to need. Georgia actually is in such a great spot with their playoff draw as of Tuesday night that I really think they're just going to be in injury protection mode. All right, well, that'll do it for the segments on this week's podcast. So let's go ahead and recap the agrees and the head-to-heads we've got. Not a lot of agree this week, really. The only thing I think we had some consensus on as a crew was the Lions. Drew bet it. It was his best bet. Jake said he's on it as well. I might get there. As I said, big numbers scare me a lot, so we'll see if I get there, but definitely think it's the right side. Definitely think it's a name you number. I think Dan Campbell got a brand new belt he's going to break out to bring to that game. But where it gets fun this week is we have a few head-to-heads on the crew. First and foremost, the Raiders and Browns. Jake and Drew kind of disagreed. I think Drew said completely disagreed with the look there. Jake is on the Browns plus 3.5. Drew is on the Raiders minus 3 is the number he had, but even said he might be comfortable laying the 3.5. He might add more later in the week. And then I threw out that I like the Shedeur Sanders under completions. Drew was happy to oblige on anything under on Shedeur, but Jake, by proxy of having some faith in the Browns, think there's not that much of a fall off between Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. He might be right. We'll see what happens. But so big head-to-head for us in how do we pick the ugliest game on the board for a head-to-head? Like, usually you want your head-to-heads to be fun. We picked the ugliest game on the board. So good for us. And then the other head-to-head game we had is Jake and I disagreed a little bit on the Bears. I had the Bears as my best bet. Jake did say he likes the plus 3 on the Steelers. I like the minus 2.5. That number is moving, so depending on what number you get, you might be able to play both sides of that. At least, if you land on the 3, there could be a push involved. But we had a little bit of a head-to-head there. I do want it noted, Jake is a Steelers fan, so take that for what it's worth. I have no rooting interest besides my bet in that game. If you value that in your handicap in any way, take that into consideration on that other head-to-head. All right, well, that will bring our Week 12 episode to a wrap. We gave you our 6 different best bets. We're looking to continue the hot streak we've had on those. We threw out all of the guys that we like to score this week. As always, remember to check our social medias on Sunday when we throw out our touchdown scorer parlay that you can join us on. We gave you some props. We covered the primetime games. We threw out a couple of futures, and then we sprinkled in a few other bets we like here. We had a fun round robin that Jake threw out there this week. We had another college play as always. Hopefully we can finally get one of those to go through the net for everybody. We'll see how that plays out. And then obviously we have our one agree and our couple of head-to-heads. We'll see how those all go. But before you guys get out of here, if you stayed through the whole video, please do us a favor. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so that way you get all of our latest episodes when they come out, so that way you can keep taking this analysis, keep taking these picks, hopefully helping improve your handicapping, finding some winners, and again, just coming back next week to see what we have to say. So other than that, we'll see you guys next week, and best of luck to everybody on their wagers this weekend.
Let's have a week.
Go.